Hello adventurers, and welcome back to my channel. I am back at base camp right now and doing a few things, but that doesn't mean that my van doesn't serve a purpose here in Texas also. In fact, you all know I test out a lot of power stations, and on my recent travels I was actually carrying with me the new Bluetti. So now that I'm back in Texas, I'm going to show you what I do with it while I'm here at base camp, in addition to what you've seen me do while I'm doing my van journey. I think this is important because a lot of times when we're investing in those larger things, we need to see how they can translate into different parts of our lives. So today I'm going to show you some cool stuff. Okay, let's start off by getting out the Bluetti so that we can get started here. Now, for those of you who are not familiar, I am from Texas and I spend about 25% of my year back here in the Lone Star State. I usually come here every year for the holidays and spend a little bit of time with my family members, and it's wonderful, except one thing. Texas has really crazy weather, and so sometimes it's nice, sometimes it's cold. In fact, today is the last warm day that we're going to experience for the next 10 days, and they're already putting out some warnings like this one. Do you guys see this? Do you see all of those cool toned colors? Yeah, in fact, this is the potential that we have for snow. They are expecting that we are going to have snow here in North Texas. Now, while snow itself doesn't sound like a big deal, and you're probably thinking, well, you're not in the van, no big deal. It is when you're in Texas, because we have an issue within our power grid, and because of that, last year we actually lost power for an extended amount of time. Now, when your power at your home fails, having a power station like the Bluetti EB3A can actually be super handy, because this is 600 watts of power, which means that it can do a variety of different things. So I'm going to take this inside base camp and get it fully charged up, so over the next few days I will have backup power just in case. Now, a lot of people, especially those who live up north, are probably saying it's just snow, it's not that big of a deal. But again, go back to our power grid. It has some issues, and although they've been working on it, they have also said, hey, you might want to have a few extra supplies, and if you can, have a generator or a power station. Of course, before I take it inside, let's go ahead and take a look at it really quickly. This is the EB3A. It's a 600 watt power station. It has 2 standard wall plugs. It also has this area right here where we can charge it. Then we have a DC outlet, so I could actually bring my refrigerator in if I need to. And then we have some USB charging areas also. Now, this guy right here can be charged using solar panels, but it's kind of looking like we're not going to have a whole lot of sun over the next couple days. So I'm going to go ahead and get it fully charged up inside just in case we need it. And then if for some reason I do run it fully into the ground because I've used all of the power, I can pop out those solar panels, or I can also put it in the van and drive just a little bit and charge it up so that I can use it again. So this is perfect, not only again for van life, but also for preparedness here at base camp. And it's getting pretty windy out here, and I can feel the cold just starting to cut through my t-shirt, so let's go inside. Now, before I plug it in, I wanted to show you something kind of interesting. You see these 2 sets of cords right here. This is the standard brick that the previous Bluetti that I had used, and I still have that one. However, this brick was always kind of cumbersome because it was so large. And that's one of the things that I noticed that a lot of people were giving feedback on to Bluetti as a brand, was that this was bulky, but also it makes like a fan noise. So they replaced it with just this one cord, and wow, I love this. I love that they listened to the feedback from others and came up with something that was more compact, but also something that was super easy. There's another thing that I didn't love about this one. Even though the power station as a whole did well, I didn't love the fact that whenever you would use this, you would have to plug it into the regular wall plug, because this little guy right here would just pull so much power. But this guy pulls a slightly less amount of power, and so I can use it on my inverter strips much easier. Now, if you've watched my channel for a while, you have already seen the power station on the right-hand side. That's the EB55. It's a 700 watt power station. And then this one is the 600 watt power station. And you can see there is a size difference in each of these. But more importantly, there is a weight difference. This one is much heavier than this one. They again listened to the feedback and provided a high watt power station that doesn't have that super heavy feel to it. And I really like that. I am going to be charging up both of these, I think. That way I can have two separate units to use here at base camp. But I wanted to share with you the differences. Let's kind of look a little bit closer so you can see kind of what to expect versus some of the other models. On the EB3A, there are 2 outlets right here. And on the EB55, there are also 2 outlets. But then there are these like little bonus outlets. Now, I will say this. I've never used these 2 bonus outlets because there's not a whole lot of companies that actually use a straight plug anymore. They mostly use a 3-prong instead of a 2-prong. But that is nice if you do find one of those. On the EB55, we have 4 USB slots. And on the EB3A, there are only 2. Both of them do have one USB-C 100 watt, and both of them have the same DC output with 2 little things here and then 1 plug with a cover here on this one. And then on this one, those little plugs are on the side, but again, they have the big plug with a cover. Now, I really appreciate the fact that Bluetti has put the cover on these. You guys have probably seen my thoughts on those. It just makes the power station last longer. On top, both do have a wireless charging capability. The main difference here is just going to be this is a bit wider than this one, and you can put the same thing on there though. This only will charge like 1 cell phone at a time. It needs to be placed kind of in this position, and same thing on this one. The main difference between these two really does come with the charging itself. The charging itself is a much different experience. So again, I'm going to do it side by side so you can see the charging experience and you'll kind of understand why I don't love the brick as much as I love the new charging cord. On the EB55, you have a 2-piece charging brick. This is actually 2 separate cords, and so for the purpose of this, I'm going to set this right on top of here so that we can have access to both ends of the cord. And we're plugging it in. And I'm sure you can hear that. Now, interestingly enough, that sound is coming out before we've even plugged the power station itself in. The fan automatically turns on this thing and runs nonstop. So when we plug it in, it doesn't make any difference on the sound itself. And now we're going to plug in the new power station and bring it over here with this plug. Now, the interesting thing about this is the plug itself is covered, and all we do is just slide this directly into the spot. And I'm doing this with one hand just to show that it can in fact be done. But yeah, there we go, there we go. Okay, now this thing is pretty well charged because I just did travel, but at the same time I want to go ahead and top off that final percent. This is where you see one of the bigger differences on the power station though. See this display right here? Well, check out this display right here. As you can see, a little bit different on each one of them. They do use the glowing LCD, and I do appreciate that. But one of the things that I really had a lot of feedback on was this little battery percentage right here, because you'll notice it's 20, 40, 60, 80, then 100. And it rounds up or down in 20% increments. So it makes it a little harder to know exactly how much power that you have left. But this guy right here tells you the exact percentage in addition to giving you this little display that moves in increments. So that is much better, and I really appreciate again that they've listened to the feedback and really made that adjustment, because it just makes it for a better user experience. But I'm going to go ahead and let these guys charge, and then I'll show you what all I'm going to be using them for here around base camp. Now, I was here last year when the power failed, and let me just tell you, it was not pleasant. It was so cold. It was like a bitter cold even inside. Just to kind of let you guys have a better understanding of how cold it was, here in Texas, we have heaters and central air and things like that, and that is wonderful, but ours is not set up for those extreme conditions. So even at my property here, where we had power for the most part, it overworked the actual heating unit to the point of failure, and it had to be replaced this year. And that was just scratching the surface of the bad stuff that happened here in Texas. So you might be scratching your head saying, okay, but Bunny, this isn't a van related video. Oh, but it is. Just because you're in a vehicle doesn't mean that you're not prepared for a base camp freeze. Now, if you watch my preparedness video, you'll understand a little bit more about how van life people are kind of a little bit more prepared than one might think. And we could actually contribute some of those ideas to others within society, and it could really help them out. So that's why I wanted to share this video, which is a bit different, but also at the same time still a review, because I am kind of going to give you those tools to see how well that this particular power station will work. But I want you to think about it not just as a power station, but as something that could really provide a service for you if you need it. I think that that's one of the things that we overlook. A lot of times we're thinking, oh yeah, I need to power my electronics in the van, and that's well and good. But what happens whenever you're in a crunch and physically need something that has power? This is good for that too. But now let's talk about the things that we could use this for in an emergency pinch, or just whenever you're on the road. If you use a CPAP machine, this guy will actually power it. Now, because I personally do not use a CPAP machine, I cannot verify how many hours it will get. However, I have plugged in one, and I do know for a fact that it does in fact work, and it shows up that it will work for a few hours. Now, I think things like that are super important, and this guy right here could power other medical devices as well in a pinch, because anything that pulls less than 600 watts will in fact turn on with this thing. Now, ideally, you're not going to run like a microwave or a heating device of any kind on it. However, all the other things within your household during a pinch, this guy's got you. Okay guys, we have a little bit of an update here on the weather that's coming in. It looks like there's some rain, some sleet pellets, and also flurries, but right now they're saying that the temperatures are high enough where it's not going to be sticking, so that sounds good so far. But we still have the power station ready to go. Also, let's kind of look at what the weather is going to be like over the next few days. Well, in our 10-day forecast, it looks like right now it's 41 degrees, and it is a chilly, bone-cutting 41 because the wind is also blowing. But as you can see, the temperatures are only going to continue to drop, and those lows have actually dropped down from even yesterday when I started this video. Originally, the lows said that they would be in the 30s, but as you can see now, they're crunching down into the 20s, and some of those highs are crunching down even further. So, again, this is the main reason why I wanted to get the power station ready, just in case. And well, now I have the Bluetti all charged up, so it's time to place it strategically in base camp. And what I mean by that is after you have it fully charged, you want to put it in a nice central location so it's easy to get to, just in case you need it, but at the same time where it's out of the way so it's not impeding your day-to-day life. So I'm actually going to be placing this right in my bedroom so that if for some reason I don't have power in the middle of the night, I can still have the ability to find it without having to navigate using my cell phone flashlight or one of my little lanterns that I keep in the house for preparedness. So that'll be a good, easy place for me to get to it, but also that way it's out of sight, out of mind, unless I need it. Now, in addition to that, I'm going to be placing it probably right down here in my closet, but I keep all of my additional power cords in here. So if I do need to access something to charge, everything is going to be centrally located right here, but then I can also close up this door so it's again out of the way. Now, keeping those cords close by is super handy because if for some reason I do have that moment where it's like, oh no, the power has failed, I can just automatically have things ready to plug in and go, and that's super handy. So the Bluetti having that ability to be in a compact area is really nice, but also being able to then take that and maneuver it around in different portions of my home is even better. So that's where that's going to live until we need it, but I'm going to show you some of the things that I'll be plugging into it in just a few minutes.
Okay guys, update. Tonight is supposed to be the coldest of all the Texas nights, and I am laying here snugly on my couch. Currently, as you can see, we still have power and everything, but they're saying that it's going to potentially snow. So right now, I'm really happy that I have the comfort of having the backup power just in case. I do have it located right next to my bed so that if something happens and I don't have any kind of light, I'll be able to have it right there and then turn my cell phone on and be able to move it wherever I need to light-wise. But yeah, that's kind of what's going on here. In fact, look at this. This is what we're up for. Good times.
Okay, guys, well, some things happened here in Texas which were super positive. One, we didn't have a hard freeze and thus we didn't lose power. However, I was super prepared with the Bluetti, and it just gives you that comfort feeling whenever you have something like this available. And I know that we talk a lot about the van and what all I use the Bluetti for in the van, but because I wanted to share the preparedness side of this, I also want to show you a few things that I can use with this inside base camp. Now, you've seen me before charging things like my cell phone and my little power banks for charging as I kind of go here and there. I do a lot of that whenever I'm using my inside my van power stations. I charge them directly off, I plug them in, and it's all good to go. But there's a lot of other things that you can use power stations for, which is why I wanted to do today's video. And as you can see, I am in short sleeves once again, not bundled up freezing to death. And so this is a good time for us to plug in some of those things and kind of see what all the power station is capable of. I've been super happy with it thus far, and I have used it for about 2,000 miles in this van already. So I know that it's proven, and I know that based on the size, that it fits in any size rig. I mean, hello, if I can fit it into my tiny rig right here, you can fit it into yours also. It'll easily fit into an SUV for car camping, and then of course, you can use it at your base camp. So let's go inside and check out a few things that we can plug in, and how many watts that they draw, and estimate some time frames of how long that means that this power station would last. As you can see here, here's the power station, and then we're going to start off with this cord right here. It just plugs into the USB and then works with several different devices. This one happens to have the C end on it, so it's like right there. It's kind of hard to see, but there it is. We're going to plug that into something. Now, for the purpose of today's video, we're going to be plugging this same cord into this little safety light. Now, this is a light that I like to keep here at base camp because it provides a lot of light, but it's an LED bulb, so it doesn't pull the most amps. Now, one of the things I really like about it is it has a little handle on it, so I can take it around like a lantern, or I can carry it and put it into a room. And because, again, the LED light's in there, it isn't going to get super hot. So this is a very good safety light for around base camp, and it also kind of works with the aesthetic of home. So how many watts does something like this take? As you can see, it's plugged into the light itself, and then as we trace it over to the Bluetti, you'll see that it's pulling about 2 watts. But because this is an LED, it's not going to pull those consistently. It's only going to pull it as needed. So this has an adjustment knob on it where we can actually turn it up. And as we do, you'll notice that it starts pulling those 2 watts again, because what it's doing is it's literally replacing the power as it's being used. So at that rate, we could go for about 30 hours on this light being consistently plugged in. Now, the nice thing about this, though, is that you can actually plug this light in and charge it up, and then pull it away from the power station, and it will run independently. Let me show you. Notice that the light is still going, the plug is unplugged, and even though this little green light is on right here showing that this plug is still active, whenever we click it, you'll notice that there are no watts being pulled, but we still have this nice safety light. So this is a good thing that you can do at your base camp or in your sticks and bricks to keep yourself going whenever the power fails. And I really like that. Think about it this way. This light right here, 2 watts, 30 hours of charging, and you can have numerous charges off of this one power station. So you could keep yourself with a little bit of light without ever having to use your cell phone whatsoever. Now, the next thing I wanted to show you is something that's completely unnecessary at the house, but involves a light bulb. And because of that light bulb, there is heat involved with this one. So I wanted to show you that this, using a standard plug, could also run off of the Bluetti. Now, is this going to be an emergency item? No, not at all. However, is this going to be something that is just nice to know that you can, in fact, run it? Yeah. Okay, so I have it plugged in, and now we're going to turn it on. And whenever we do, we should be able to see the light turn on, which we do. And in fact, it did turn the little light bulb on. So again, this just goes to show that anything that is a light-based item will run off of this. So if you are using this in a pinch whenever you happen to have a bad storm, anything that is a light-based item will in fact work off of the Bluetti. Again, it's highly impractical that you'll want to use this as your warmer solution. However, it's pulling about 19 watts, which means that it could run for 11.8 hours. If you really just were in a pinch, it's not so much about what we're running at this moment, it's that it can run it. And I want you guys to see that, because a lot of times whenever we look at things in the van itself, we're just looking at practical items that we're using in the van. But in reality, there's a lot of things that also can use this particular power station. And so I'm just showing you some wild ones right now, but I have one that I want to show you next that's super handy. Again, we have the Bluetti right here, and you might remember last year I entered my van into a Christmas parade and I powered all my Christmas lights using a power station. So can this actually power Christmas lights too? Well, I just so happen to have a string on the top of my cabinets that I can show you. As you can see, I have this plug still left on. We're just going to bring this cord in and plug it in. And as we do, you'll notice that we're pulling about 38 watts, which means that right here you can see that means that this would work for about 6.3 hours. So these are not LEDs. These are traditional regular Christmas lights. LEDs actually run a bit cooler, so those pull about half that amount of watts. But look at this. We have Christmas lights. That's right. Christmas lights in a pinch with no outlet, no problem. Now again, you might be scratching your head saying, but I thought that we were preparing for bad things. Guess what? Christmas lights are also lights. They produce a lot of ambient light. So having some of these around your house can actually be pretty handy in a pinch, because you can illuminate a larger amount of space. And so that's something you might also want to consider. If you pick up a string of white lights and have them at your base camp in your emergency kit along with something like this, you can illuminate a much larger area instead of having to have multiple smaller areas illuminated by those smaller lights. So that's my little tip to you guys. And I just wanted to show more than anything how the power station can handle that. Again, LED is going to do a little bit better though. So that's my little tip for you. Now this one is something that I think is really great about having portable power. If you have a person who's in your family who happens to need a little extra assistance and the power fails and you all have to be in separate rooms because of medical devices or because mobility issues, that can be very problematic. And so one of the things that I really like about the portable power is that you can take a portable power station into the room with them, and you can also have one in the space that you're in, and you can use something like this. This is a little intercom system, and you can put these for many, many yards away. So for example, my grandparents lived very close to us, but not in the same house. My dad set these up for them so that if they had a medical issue, they could let us know. Well, in the case of a power failure, this wouldn't have worked. And so what you can do is have a backup power unit so that whenever you are in a situation, you can just take this out of the wall and plug it directly into the power station, so you still have that safety and security from a distance. And I think that that is really valuable. And another reason why portable power is so important, whether you're on the road or at home. Now keep in mind, you can have one of these at each home with a battery backup for them, and you can use multiple things at the same time. So while this is plugged in, you could also lay your phone on top of this and have it charge on the wireless charging system. And that is so handy. But in addition, you could plug in other important things such as your light to make sure that you still have a little bit of safety. And also you could potentially plug in a surge protector to keep larger items such as your oxygen or things that have to be running non-stop still going. In fact, a surge protector just like this one right here are perfect for that scenario, because as you can see, there are several outlets on the top, and then you also have a little USB. And in order to keep this thing going, all you have to do is make sure it's plugged into some kind of electricity. And then when the electricity fails, if it's coming from a wall, it'll stay on for about 2 hours. However, if you have a backup like this, you can then plug it into this, and it's pulling about 18 watts. And for that, you could run it for 12 hours. So for someone who needs medical care and life-saving device, this is a perfect scenario for the home person who is needing just that little extra bit of support. And I think that this is why Bluetti has a perfect power station, because it is so simplistic to use. And with all of the features that we talked about earlier, this is a miracle combo just waiting to be had. Now, if you use this combination correctly, you could actually get through a full night of being sub-zero, frozen, no lights, and have your devices still up and going so that you could make sure that you are good to go. Now, one of the things that I do suggest is that if you are using these things, that you kind of practice with them beforehand. If this is going to be purchased for your preparedness kit, that's always smart. And what I mean by practice is just take things and plug and play, and then recharge the Bluetti and then plug and play again. And then make yourself a checklist that every so often you periodically check things out to make sure they're all in a centralized place that are easy to access. For example, if you're using the Bluetti as your emergency backup power, just make sure every so often that you touch a button and look at it and say, oh, it's fully charged, we're good to go. And do it again every so often. Just make it a routine. That way, if you do end up using it kind of in between, you're still checking it out to make sure that you top it off. So as you can see, the Bluetti has a lot of potential, whether you're on the road or in a sticks and bricks planning for your next possible freeze like I was here in Texas. It has multiple functions, and it can have so many functions for you. For example, when I am here at base camp, I can use it for my backup, and then I can put it in the van and head on down the road, pop it out, pull it to a picnic table, set up my computer, and have a beautiful view as I work. The Bluetti is definitely listening to their consumers, and I'm really happy that they are, because the new plug system I really do prefer, and it has been absolutely wonderful. I know it made me feel very comfortable and confident while I was here at base camp when I was heavily relying on it, and I think that you guys would really like this one because, again, they listen to consumers, they change the display, they change the plug, and all in all, it has a lot of value now and a lot of bang for the buck. So if you're interested in one, I'm going to leave a link below, and you can check out all of the different models there to strategically make your plan. I do encourage you, no matter what, even if you're not trying to pick up a power station today after watching this video, be thinking about your plans should you be in a situation where you do have a power failure. Consider your options for lighting, additional power, making sure that you can still communicate, and those kinds of things. And remember, guys, at the end of the day, we're not here for a long time, but we are here for a good time. And after you've thought through these things, you're definitely going to have a better time. Until next time, guys, bye!